And then we get to their wedding and they get married. And I was like, what? Are you serious? Welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Zelenny. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. Today I just wanted to chat with y'all about Love is Blind Argentina. Personally, I'm a little bit burnt out on Love is Blind, so this video might be a little casual. It might be a little bit more like overview because I did already watch the entire season of Love is Blind Argentina also. I have done quite a few Love is Blind countries, but I don't do necessarily every season that comes out. I like to kind of have a personal connection, or in the cases of like UK and Japan, those are countries where I've consumed at least some of their media before, and so I find it interesting enough to cover it. But for some other countries, I kind of struggle with like, well, I feel like I have no connection or no frame of reference for this country and its media. But a few months ago, I did cover Love is Blind Mexico and had a very interesting journey with that. I am Mexican American myself, and with the Latin American countries, I feel a little more of a connection and a little more curiosity, frankly, to actually watch the show. I understand the native language, which I also like because I feel like I can get some of the nuance. Though with Argentina, it's a little different than Mexican Spanish. It would be like if in English I was watching like Love is Blind Ireland or Love is Blind Scotland, where I technically understand the language, but also there's like a lot of sayings that are totally different that you don't know what they mean, words that are common that aren't common in other places. It was very funny and interesting to learn a little bit about Argentinian Spanish and a lot of the sayings. There are so many sayings this season. So much talk about boludo. And I'm just like, does that mean what I think it means? I assume it means like ballsy, like has balls. But they just call people boludo all the time. But like also in Mexico, in Mexican Spanish, you call people lots of, you know, weird kind of vulgar things sometimes. So it's like, it makes sense. I'm just not used to their versions of some words and their slang and things. I hope y'all enjoy talking about this if you watch Love is Blind Argentina. And even if you didn't, I'm hoping this video can be a fun, like, kind of recap or just telling you some of the funny bits that happened if you're not looking to commit to a whole new season. Because, yeah, we've had a lot of Love is Blind this year. I'm kind of, like, overwhelmed a bit on it. But it's really great for the people of those countries, I think, to have representation and their own cultures represented, for better or for worse, you know? Like, I don't think Love is Blind for any country is like the best representation of the culture and the people. It's a lot of like ugly sides of our societies because it's reality TV and that's the nature. But it's cool to see like my Latin American friends and family get excited about like the franchise hitting their countries. So let me talk about kind of my general thoughts on Love is Blind Argentina, if I think it's worth watching. I mean, the worth watching question is so hard with Love is Blind now because it's like, you either like it or you don't. I think it was a very well-rounded season. It did have some of like the production value issues that were kind of similar to Mexico, but it was definitely better quality than Mexico, I would say. Like, the editing was not as choppy. There were little things like there like visible mics and stuff during the pods, but as far as like the producing of it, it wasn't as like confusing as Mexico. Mexico had a lot of confusing moments on and off camera, and I think Argentina reined that in, and I'm gonna get into why, I think, because it kind of took a different approach with like kind of the meta aspect of being on a TV show, which was very interesting. Also, I kind of appreciated in Love is Blind Argentina, like they were moving, especially in those pod scenes. I don't know, there just wasn't this like goofy filler type of things in the pods that it's romantic, and the romantics probably enjoy, but it just makes the pods drag on, and I feel like they were getting to the point. If you enjoy the drama of Love is Blind, there was a lot of drama. The pods had a lot of different love triangles going on in the season. There were couples to root for and couples that were like more toxic and more weird and cringy ones. So it felt like a well-rounded season of Love is Blind. So let me move on to what I didn't like about the season, and this was a problem with Mexico too. And it's just very invasive with like the bedroom cameras. There was kind of a lot of showing of sexual moments, intimate moments in the bedroom, showing of butts and nakedness, which it's totally fine. I think America is one of the most prudish countries, so to me it's a little bit shocking. Where I have a problem with it is that a lot of the contestants expressed feeling weird about the cameras being around and feeling scared of them. There was one couple where like they were not progressing sexually. I mean, they had a lot of problems, but like they were not progressing sexually, and a part of the reason was because she was very like uncomfortable with the cameras being around. And a lot of the couples expressed this, not just that one. And yeah, it was uncomfortable. And after what happened in Mexico too, with like them showing a sex scene of one of the contestants who has a daughter who's like old enough to like be bullied about it, honestly. It's just very icky, and I don't like that about, so far, like the 2 Latin American seasons I've watched this year. It just feels very exploitative. And I do find it interesting that they kept it in the edit that the contestants were uncomfortable with the cameras. That's very new, and it was like a choice that Argentina made. Probably because some things wouldn't make sense if you refuse to acknowledge that you're on a show and there's cameras around. Like, that's kind of a huge reality TV sin here in the US and UK, places with like very robust reality TV industries that have like kind of perfected the recipe. But I think other countries have different approaches, or just, yeah, they probably have a different history with reality TV. Yeah, in Argentina, all the contestants were talking about like, we're on a show and this is weird in front of the cameras, this feels awkward in front of the cameras. Even this choice they made of like, they would have Love is Blind logos on the on different things throughout the show. Like, the logo would be present in the scenes, and that seems like so inconsequential. But when I was thinking about it, like other reality shows, you just don't acknowledge the show. Like, you don't see logos of the show itself anywhere in the scene, because they want you as the audience to be like really immersed and feel like this is real life, this is not a show. I think it's interesting, and it helped it not be confusing. And it's probably why Mexico was so confusing, because I feel like they did not make that choice to show the Love is Blind logo, to have the show be like an acknowledged thing on the season. I think it was smart of them, and I think it made the journeys all feel pretty clear to me, but it did affect kind of the immersion of it, which I don't mind, because I'm a reality TV nerd and I love when it gets meta and people talk about like we're on a show, because that feels more real at this point, that people are very aware of the cameras and they're aware of being on TV. To me, it feels more real when they acknowledge that, and I don't think in the US they're ready to like admit that, or some shows have tried to incorporate more showing that it's a show, I feel like in this decade specifically, but like I think America's still scared to like ruin the immersion of the viewer. So it was very fascinating to me, it just this different approach, and it helped me feel like I was getting the real story more of the time. Also, something I love and has been fun, I feel like, with Mexico too, they make like an original theme song, and then at the reunion they actually brought the band who sings the song and they performed it live, which was super cool. I've been kind of loving the reunions, like this Argentinian reunion and Mexico's. They're just a lot more like on it, and I don't know, I feel like this is the medium Latin American countries thrive in, like the talk show and like the interviewing and hosting and making like a fun party out of it. Like in Mexico, they had this like circle of truth where the couples would come onto it and it would glow a certain color depending on if they're still together or not, which is very dramatic. Argentina did their own system too, where they brought out like a big photo of the couple and they asked the girl to either exit out, like we're not together anymore, or make a heart, like we're still together. I just feel like they always know how to ham up a reveal, and that was so fun. I had a lot of fun with the reunion. I thought the host did a good job, and I'm sure some of y'all Argentinian folks will fill in a lot of gaps in the comments about the hosts. I mean, the hosts have their own backstories that like I couldn't even follow on Reddit, and also other things I might have missed throughout all the couples' journeys. But yeah, let's get into the couples. So first, let's talk about Emily and Santiago, and they were very much like a featured kind of hero couple. I wasn't rooting for them too much. I really like her, and him, he seems pretty toxic. It was a little tough for me with this couple because on one hand, I wanted them to work out because they had really good chemistry and like good times together, but also he had some behaviors that were kind of concerning. They kind of give me like Matt and Colleen vibes from season 3 of Love is Blind US. And with this couple, everything started with a dream because in a Love is Blind first, Santiago had a dream about a woman, and that would be his soulmate or something. And then the next day he went into the pod and Emily introduces herself and he's just like gagged, gooped, and confused because the woman in his dream was named Emily. It's this whole thing, and I think that's why they became such a featured hero couple, because it was very like fate and destiny and whatever. And I was kind of like, okay, guy, like he had another connection with Agustina, who Agustina was a piece of work. She was kind of like a mean girl in the pods, and she did not end up engaged. Anyway, Santiago was stringing along Agustina for quite a while also telling Emily, like, this dream, it's everything. And I just feel like he didn't even give Emily a chance to, like, win him over or, like, give himself the chance to fall in love with Emily, because I feel like the dream was all that mattered with this couple, and it just kind of felt like unearned. It was like predestination, you know, and I didn't like that. But I do think they did have like a progression and fell in love and all the things on top of the dream. It was just like there was so much emphasis on this dream that I was like, he could just be making this up, you know. But yeah, I loved Emily. She was fierce, especially for how young she was. I feel like she wasn't afraid to stand up to Santiago when he was being kind of a terror or like being unreasonable to her. He struggles a lot with jealousy as well, and she did not care. Like at one point he says Florfi would make a nice wife for him or something, which is another girl there, and she doesn't even care. When this comment would be like a whole thing in a lot of other couples. She says she's not jealous, and then her actions back it up. So I really liked Emily. I thought she was really funny, really cute and cool. And she also had such a sad backstory. She had a past as a victim of domestic violence. So it's really sad, and that also scares me a lot, of like her being with Santiago, who seems kind of volatile. Their relationship was just very up and down. That's why at times I was rooting for them, but then there'd be like red flags with him. They were like always very horny for each other, always on top of each other, and that's cool for them, but he was also very moody and kind of had a temper. When Emily met his mom, like his mom was like, oh, he's difficult to live with, like he's just difficult. They kind of got into this at the reunion, but Santiago has had some allegations on social media about how he treated a past partner, or it was like an ex-partner, and they were alleging some things. Like, I don't know if violence or some kind of abuse. I don't know. I didn't dig that deep into it, but they do ask about it at the reunion, though they're not explicit about what the allegations were. He defends himself, says he's grown, that watching the show helped him grow. So in the end, Emily and Santiago did get married. I was kind of worried because they had a pretty big fight really close to the wedding, and then they said yes, and I was like, oh. They were very affectionate with each other, very, like, expressing love. Also, they are kind of like the representation for the soccer fanatics in Argentina, which did not surprise me at all. Soccer is absolutely huge there. And Emily and Santiago root for rival teams. Like, they're part of the rival teams' fandoms. Is that what they're called in sports? Well, fandoms. Him, as revenge to her, like, took her to the stadium of the rival, like his team, and she was like mad about it, but not really. It was kind of just a funny kind of prank type thing. So yeah, apparently after getting married they moved in with his parents and then separated for a little bit after that. And this kind of seemed to be a pattern for the couples that did make it. Like, they seem to have some tough times post the show wrapping. That's not as much of a thing in the US version, but maybe it's also that in the US they don't like to acknowledge the show. And Argentina was way more transparent. I loved Emily. I fell in love with her as soon as I saw her Ralph from The Simpsons with the cone on his head tattoo. Like, she had this prominent tattoo right here of this. And I found it so hilarious too because Santiago had been like, oh, I don't like tattoos on women. And even though he has a bunch of tattoos, which I think is very hypocritical, but I thought it was very ironic he ended up with a girl with, like, the goofiest tattoo I've ever seen. So I really liked her. She was one of my favorites on this cast. Okay, next is Mauricio and Maria Emilia. Y'all, poor Maria. She literally had 2 terrible choices in the pods, and there was no winning. I was so glad to see people over 40, like in their 40s, in the pods. But then I started realizing, like, maybe there's a reason why these guys, especially these men, are in here. The 2 guys over 40 that she was talking to were rough. Like, I was so glad when she broke up with Marino was his name, because he was a cheater and wasn't even, like, apologetic about it. He was just kind of like, yeah, I'm a ladies' man, I'm a player, a mujeriego, if you will. And I was like, yes, go her. She broke it off. She has a lot of self-worth. But then she was left with the choice of Mauricio, who was a walking red flag as well. And even in the pods, he was just so, like, exigente. I don't even know how do I even say, what's the word for that? Just demanding of, like, mad that she was talking to someone else, like, all these things. Honestly, Mauricio had insane Tom Sandoval energy. Like, they are the same spirit put in different geographical locations. And they're around the same age too. I was so annoyed when they got engaged. And then he has the audacity to accuse her of being a narcissist because she's a Leo. It takes one to know one. And also, she does not have any kind of narcissist energy at all. He really pissed me off during those honeymoons because he was really pressuring her to have sex and trying to, like, I don't know, peacock around her and, like, be naked and, like, barely covering himself, and he just wanted, like, compliments for his physique. It was so, I can't diagnose anybody with anything, but I want to guess this man is a narcissist. At least he's in a very appropriate job for that. He's in, like, image consulting, like, fashion kind of purchasing, I don't know, that kind of thing. He's super intense about his diet and exercise and his body. His nose looks very much like he's had a nose job to me. He's just very concerned with appearance, and that translates into kind of like policing her, because I think she approaches her diet and exercise as more like, you know, focusing on health, but not to the extreme degree that Mauricio did, her habits were not up to par with his standards. So he was pressuring her a lot to exercise more, exercise with him, eat a certain way, like a super intensely clean diet. It was just sad because when she would get away from him, like at the wedding dress try-ons and stuff, she would see like candy or something and be like, oh my god, gonna sneak this in while Mauricio's not here. So it felt very like it was implying he was policing her diet and lifestyle quite a lot. And she kind of like backtracked on this at the reunion and mentioned like, oh, it was just kind of a joke, like I'm an adult and can make my choices. Also, I forgot to mention Mauricio was complaining about her appearance to other people in the experiment, like that she's not his type, that her style is terrible, which it's not at all. Like Emilia is a very like graceful, elegant type of lady. I don't know where he's getting any of this. He was also like suggesting she get fillers in multiple places in her face. I don't know in what world he thought she was gonna say yes at the wedding. That goes to show how self-absorbed this man is and how much he thinks very highly of himself, even though he's like extremely annoying and difficult to be around. Like, wedding day comes and he actually says yes, which I was shocked by. Like, you treat her like crap and hate on her every chance you get and then say yes at the altar? Okay. And then she said no, and she read him like a letter about why, and just like she felt he wasn't happy with her appearance, that she's been like ignoring red flags, all the things that I was thinking. And I was so worried because she seemed very like up until the end still considering this marriage, and I was just like, literally from the honeymoons he's been super weird and creepy. Why would you want to consider even marrying this man? But luckily she pulled through in the end. I think it's her age and she has self-worth, and she was probably just trying to like see it through to the end. And I loved, honestly, the bruise to his ego of a no at the altar. Like, love it. There was all these like dramatic shots afterwards of like him turning the photo around of the two of them and her like looking. It was very like posy. Like, I could tell I could feel the production arms in those scenes, but it was funny and I appreciated the effort. So then we get to the reunion, and I think at the reunion she was very gracious to him because I feel like she made a conscious decision to not throw him under the bus, to be like really respectful, very like political. Like, she has adult children or a child, and he has like a child, like a girl. And I just feel like she had probably witnessed a lot of social media hate at him already by the time the reunion came. I just feel like she saw that and probably felt bad for his daughter, you know, having like adding any fuel to the fire. So I feel like she made the conscious effort and decision to not add any fuel to the fire and honestly try to help it die down. She talked about the food thing, that she did not feel pressured by him, that they had talked about it mutually, that when he was suggesting fillers in her face, they were just on the topic of plastic surgery and they both had work done, and they were just talking about like, what would I do to myself, or well, what do you think I should do to my, like, it was more prompted. He reads this whole letter to her, like kind of apologizing but also talking about his new girl, which Mauricio is dating some other girl from the pod squad that we didn't really get to know. I think her name was Erika. Mauricio's just icky, and I'm not buying the redemption. Like, I think he said the right things at the reunion. I'm just not believing it 100%. And I think Emilia is just like, you know, I had my moment, I said no, I gave all my reasons. Like, she kept mentioning, like, I gave all my reasons at the altar. She didn't leave anything unsaid. I feel like she is a very mature, classy lady and just wants to, like, move on with life and doesn't seem to have hard feelings. And she's very gracious for that because, especially after seeing all the stuff he was saying behind her back, like, she is being extremely kind and gracious to this man. Next is Tom and Florfi. And this couple is honestly very one note the whole season. They're kind of like the hipster cool couple. I feel like a lot of American young adults might relate the most to them. He did have like another pod connection with a girl named Flor, so it was like Flor and Florfi. And I mean, I think Tom and Florfi were a really good match. Ultimately, her chill vibe won him over compared to Flor, who was less chill. We'll get to her. I was rooting for them the most. Like, I think just because I kind of relate to them the most, but also they just seemed like a good match. They didn't seem toxic. There weren't any big red flags. But literally the whole season after they got together, after the pods, it was like the same conversation over and over and over again. And it was that she wasn't sure she was ready for marriage. So she like came into this experiment like thinking she might warm up to the idea or like might be down for marriage. And then once they got engaged, it became more real, I guess. And she was like, never mind. I don't think I'm ready for marriage. But she like kind of strung it along and just kept saying that over and over, like, I'm just not convinced about marriage. I'm not convinced about marriage. Like every conversation. Until finally she was like, okay, I'm sure I'm not convinced to get married and don't want to get married. It was just weird because they seemed to have really good chemistry, got along well, had compatible kind of lifestyle. So I don't really get it. I mean, I get not wanting marriage, but I thought they were a really good match. And then they kept dating sort of after they left the experiment and then just kind of drifted apart pretty soon after. So like I don't think they were that great a match, even though they seemed like a great match on TV. So they're kind of mysterious. I don't really know. So next is Ezequiel and Julieta. So this couple they have a bit of an age gap. She's only 23. She should be at the club. But she's very much like giving Instagram influencer type, and the way this couple ends up, it feels very like cloud chaser vibes. They have a pretty standard pod journey, like they have other connections but ultimately end up together, and then they end up being kind of a good physical match. Ezequiel is like kind of a calm, reserved energy, still very like masculine. And she like left home really young, like at 13 or something. So it does feel like she has this very independent energy. And their issue becomes that like once they get together, she like never shows him affection. And she's just kind of like not that into him. She also mentions like being uncomfortable with the cameras and stuff too. So they make it to the altar after like a kind of roller coaster. Like there were times once he was kind of pulling back, she would show him some affection and kind of bring him back in, and it was kind of up and down. And then they get to the altar and then they both say yes, and I was just like, what? I was totally shocked by that. And once I saw the reunion, it kind of made more sense. They basically, especially on her end, they just got married for the show, and then afterwards kind of treated each other like they were dating. At the reunion, she says, after we got married, like, I wasn't planning on moving in together. Like, they weren't planning to live, like, a married life after getting married. So they just kind of, like, dated a bit and then drifted apart and broke up. So I don't know how legal these marriages are. I don't know, but this makes a lot more sense. It kind of sounds like the camera stopped rolling and she dipped. She's gorgeous. Like, she looks like a model or, like, you know, a Kardashian type almost. Not quite, but you know. She could have a very promising career as an influencer is what I'm getting at. And I feel like she knew, and this platform is just going to give her exposure. I'm sure other TV shows, I don't know how much Argentina does like other reality star type of shows, but I could see her getting invites to anything on TV or hosting type gigs just because she is very like TV ready appearance wise. So yeah, very bizarre couple. Like they just got married for the clout. And not on his end really. Mostly like fully on her end. I feel like he would have more success dating someone closer to his age that is really wanting to settle down. She just did not give the vibe of wanting to settle down. She thought marriage was just like, let's date, I guess. We'll see if it works out. I wasn't really rooting for them just because she didn't seem that into him. A lot of people I saw on Reddit were rooting for them, which I liked them okay as individuals. I just they didn't seem in love to me. Like, real love was when Julieta was around her dogs. Like, you could see she really loves her dogs. She was just not giving an ounce of that energy to Ezequiel. So I was like not that invested in them as a couple. Next is Matias and Brenda, which was like a couple that didn't make it far. They quit at the reveal. Well, he quit at the reveal. Matias did. At the reveal, he like sees her. They meet in the middle, and then he's like, I can't do this. I need to go back home, and I need to see how this works outside the experiment. So they quit, and we don't really see them again until the reunion. Apparently they did try dating, but they're no longer together, which is not surprising. Like, she deserves better. It was just super awkward, and it felt very like pointed. It felt kind of like his emergency exit plan if he wasn't that into her, which she was very pretty. So, and he clarified at the reunion it wasn't about her looks, but still it gives that vibe, and of course it probably feels very shitty on her end. Okay, next is Roberto and Eva, or Evangelina, I think was her full name. This couple also didn't make it far. They quit in the honeymoons, and Roberto was just giving nothing. Giving absolutely nothing. He was a little younger than Eva. It was honestly like a mini Hannah and Nick situation with this couple during the honeymoons. This couple is a what if version of Nick and Hannah if like Hannah didn't have the whole extra mean factor to her. Eva was very frustrated at Roberto during the honeymoons. Like, he was kind of a picky eater, and that felt like childish to her. And he was putting in like no effort romantically. When they would sleep together, he would build like a pillow wall between them, and she was like, what the fuck? She was getting very frustrated and talking to other couples about it and stuff, but like, she wasn't being mean to him or just like taking digs at every insecurity of his. She was trying to like address the issue and confront it and be like, I want you to put in more effort, but not like mean. So it's kind of an interesting comparison there, because it's similar problems. Like, he just seemed kind of immature and not ready for a real relationship. She even gives the classic quote, he's a boy, not a man. And I'm glad she broke it off. They broke up after the honeymoons. It just wasn't working. And it's fine. Like I've said before, normalize it not working out. It's been like a week or two of your lives. He had another connection with Agustina as well, who was the mean girl. Or she was just very, very abrasive in the pods. As soon as Roberto got back from the honeymoons and breaking up his engagement, he hit up Agustina and they kind of dated. I think they're at the reunion, they're in a situationship at that point. Of course, he found a way to get himself in a situationship where he does not have to commit. And Agustina was interesting. I mean, she was a fun villain to have around for the pods and then the reunion. She was wearing like a bizarre wire around her. I don't know if this is just too fashionable for me to understand, but I was confused by her. She kind of talks about how she invented this like queen diva persona to like cope because she had a tough childhood and stuff, which I don't doubt it, but at times she's very rude. And also, they had this moment at the reunion of like Roberto and Eva there to like resolve or get closure of their breakup, and Agustina was there too, and she was being pretty rude about Eva. Eva was honestly super cool and nice and respectful to them, and that showed a lot about her character, because we did see her kind of like not at her best in the honeymoon. She was very frustrated with Roberto, but then at the reunion that showed me like she was self-aware and taking accountability. She was like mean to Emily at one point, and she apologized at the reunion to Emily. I just felt very like big of her, especially with Agustina there trying to like poke at her and rolling her eyes and things. Eva handled it very gracefully, and like obviously she's way too mature for Roberto, who's acting like a little boy. And honestly, Roberto and Agustina work well. Agustina also is very immature vibes, so they're honestly a good couple. Okay, and finally our last couple was Jose Luis and Florencia. This couple was insane. I was so gagged by them every step of the way. This was a situation where they were 2 second choices in the pause for people that paired up. They both were very heartbroken about their first choices getting engaged to other people, so they just ended up together. And for most of their journey, I felt like they were just so, like, 2 clout chasers just wanting to be on TV no matter what. And I was like, this is just so crazy. But then as the season went on, I was like, is it just crazy enough to work? Because they worked in the end. I mean, I honestly hated this couple as a couple, mostly because I hate him. I hated him. He was just so obnoxious. And then how he treats Florencia throughout, I just didn't like. Flor, she's very cringe, but I love her. As soon as she said she had 4 cats, I was all in. I love a cat lady, of course. I am a cat lady. So this couple had a weird journey because they had their reveal, kind of like, what's his name, art dealer, Leo and Brittany in season 7. Their reveal was kind of awkward. It was kind of weak. And they were not chosen to go on the honeymoons. They decided to continue dating outside the experiment, and they actually did. And then after the honeymoons, once Roberto and Eva were gone, they brought them back in to the experiment, so they picked up the show in the real world, moving in together part. And it was going to be awkward because they both had really strong connections with other people in the couples, so they were going to have to run into those people, and they were kind of nervous. And yeah, this couple, I just hated. Flor had to be like begging him to show affection, to show any romance to her, to like care about her. I don't know. And then he would be all mad that she was too demanding and that this is what life was going to be like with her. Also, like, his mom was very disapproving of the experiment, of the relationship. Flor is, as soon as she meets the mom, is already like, I love you. And the mom is like, you don't know me. I don't know you. Like, what are you talking about? The mom, oh my gosh, she was the only normal person on this journey. When Flor, her brother, comes to visit to meet him, and the brother's like, okay, what do you love about Flor? Jose Luis is just like, I don't know. I need to think. Like, bitch, what? You can't answer that question and you're getting married. So I felt like this couple was a sham for the longest time because Flor is just very kooky, and it just felt like, oh, she probably just wants to be on TV. And then Jose Luis, I thought, he just wants to be on TV because he seems to have no interest in this woman. And then we get to their wedding and they get married. And I was like, what? Are you serious? Why? Why would you two get married? He's like allergic to cats. His mom hates cats. And then he's treating her like shit, so she should not be saying yes. Oh, and she would have to move her whole life from the city she's in. So it just didn't seem logical. And then at the reunion, we get the update on them, and they're still married. They're still married. So, yeah. I mean, they did have a rough patch. It sounded similar to Emilia and Santiago, the other couple that got married. She did pack up her whole life right after, packed up her 4 cats and moved in, but then it was all a lot for him adjusting to having a wife, and so he needed some time, so they separated for a bit. They spent about a month apart, but then came back together because I think her moving everything and, you know, her commitment to the relationship is what got him to come back and be together, stay together. I was in shock. Like, Julieta and Ezequiel, okay, I was surprised, but they seem like okay matched. Emilia and Santiago, I was a little surprised, but like, you know, they were a match and had a lot of good moments. But Jose Luis and Flor, I was like, excuse me? And they're still together? What? Truly shocking. So that was Love is Blind Argentina. I don't have that much insight on the location, the country, even the culture. I mean, I just know a few surface things. And Latin American cultures have a lot of similarities, you know, across the board. So I definitely related a lot still. I would love to hear your thoughts on Love is Blind Argentina. ¿Qué importa el que dirán? Recién nos conocemos. Also, by the way, I'm making a behind the scenes video about the making of this video, basically showing the process of how I make a Love is Blind video from concept to completion. That is in my memberships tier on my YouTube channel. YouTube is incentivizing content creators to put up more exclusive content for members of the channel, which is like paid subscribers. And I didn't want to put anything there that was like commentary or stuff I put normally on my main channel. But if anyone's interested in just behind the scenes and what goes into a video, it kind of seems like it'd be really straightforward, but it's actually a lot of work and steps. It's just extra bonus stuff, nothing to replace what's on my main channel or anything. And if you also have any other ideas for things I should cover in December or things I should chat about, I'm happy to. I feel like I have a lot of ideas, but I'm kind of not sure which ones to pursue and which, like, how to prioritize them. Also, like, The Ultimatum season 3 is coming out, I believe. I don't know if people care about The Ultimatum anymore. And I'm not talking about the queer ultimatum, that's a whole other story and I'm very interested. But the regular ultimatum, I feel like last time I covered it, there was just not that much interest. And for me, I'm not that interested either in The Ultimatum. If you're interested in that, let me know. Or other things that are coming out. Or like kind of year-end type stuff. Let me know in the comments. I'm open to ideas for December. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos whenever I feel like it about TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. And you can follow me at mizelennyus to keep up with me, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!